Welcome, Gun Runner.
In my previous greatest of all time videos, I've counted down the 20 greatest consoles and 20 greatest computers, and indeed the top 40s of both of these for my patrons. So I think it was pretty obvious that a video counting down the 20 greatest handhelds, as voted for by you of course, would follow, and here we are. As before, I put this question to the members of several big retro gaming groups on Facebook, including the hugely popular and very lively Retro Gaming Hysteria, link in the description for those who want to join, as well as my own loyal subscribers, asking them to name their top 3 and the reasons why they chose those particular handhelds. To make things a bit easier and more straightforward, I didn't count specific models, only the actual handheld range itself. So for example, the Atari Lynx 1 and 2 were counted together, all Nintendo Game & Watches were bundled into one entry, and there was no difference noted between the various models of the Sony PSP. We also want to point out that this poll included both handheld consoles as well as standalone portables, like the LCD based games and VFD tabletops. Again, following the same rules as before, I awarded 3 points to your first choice, 2 points to second and 1 point for third. I then counted up these votes to decide the final placings, and in the case of handhelds having the same number of points, I then went to the number of votes awarded, followed by the number of first place votes to decide the ranking, although this tiebreaker only had to be used for one placing within the top 20. Interestingly, the placings from number 20 up to the top 4 were very close indeed, but the points totals for those top 4 handhelds were really far apart, as much as 20 points in fact. There were no major surprises in terms of what made the top 20, however I was quite surprised not to see more modern handhelds like the Evercade, Steam Deck and Analog Pocket feature. There were quite a few notable handhelds that got 0 votes too, like the very first portable console, the MB Microvision, the Bitcorp GameMate and the TigerGame.com. Although none of these sold in great numbers, I did think they might still have a few hardcore fans out there. But I don't want to give away too many spoilers in terms of what did and didn't make the final list and where they were ranked, so we should probably just get on with things and count down the 20 greatest handhelds of all time.
Itchy fingers, gotta go. Hit the button, play the video. Real handful, 6 around. Eye those graphics, hear that sound. Hornby's hot now, hotter than ever. New talking turtle.
Cowabunga! Yeah!
Got you zapped, what a shot, this buzz hot. Handheld video games and new talking turtles from Hornby. Hot or what?
In the late 80s, Konami decided to get in on the current craze for handheld games by launching their own range of LCD based portables to compete with the likes of Tiger Electronics and Systema. Most of these were reimaginings of their current NES and arcade games such as Contra, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Blades of Steel. One of the earliest VFD tabletops, Astro Wars is probably the most famous one too. Distributed in the UK by Grandstand, the game was originally created by Japanese company Epoch and was known in their home territory as Super Galaxian and renamed Galaxy 2 for North America. This is a truly classic space-based shoot 'em up. Known as Galaxy Invader 1000 or simply as Galaxy Invader, this is another classic space shooter, but one that is more handheld in its form. Created by well-known Japanese handheld manufacturers Gakken and sold in other markets by both CGL and Tandy, it was re-released in several different colours and case variations. Simon is the only handheld to make the top 20 that isn't a video game, rather an electronic game with no screen, where you have to replicate a series of sounds using 4 coloured buttons. Created by the father of video games, Ralph Baer, he actually stole the idea from Atari's much earlier Touch Me, but very much improved on the concept.
Match Simon's face, there's another, Simon's brother. Super Simon's the name, and it's an exciting game. It's big and it's long and it's new and it's loaded with tricks. It's quicker than lightning, and he thinks faster than you. Super Simon's great sport. He's got 5 games inside, and each will sharpen your mind. You gotta move fast, you gotta decide or get when you fall behind. Simon and Super Simon from MB Electronics.
Bandai launched the original WonderSwan handheld in Japan in 1999 with the updated WonderSwan Color following just a year later. A further revision called the WonderSwan Crystal also arrived in 2002. The handheld was pretty successful, but sadly Bandai never felt confident enough to go head to head with Nintendo outside of their homeland. After the huge success of the PSP and its many variations, Sony were keen to release a follow-up, so in December 2011 they released the PS Vita to expectant audiences in their homeland, with a Western release following just 2 months later. Despite boasting some very powerful hardware, it never really took off like the PSP, which wasn't helped by Sony's poor support for it.
She wouldn't give up that easy, would she?
She never does. Stay alert.
There she is! Got you! Gotta get away from her!
I'm trying.
Up there! What's she? Look out! The trees! They're coming down!
I already mentioned the handheld boom of the late 80s, partly fueled by the arrival of the Nintendo Game Boy, and by far the biggest beneficiary of this craze was Tiger Electronics. If they could make a handheld out of it, they did, licensing just about every kind of thing you can think of: movies, TV shows, arcade games, sports stars, anything goes really. The latest member of Nintendo's handheld legacy, the Switch was originally released as a hybrid console that allowed you to play as a handheld or a traditional console through a docking unit. However, modern versions of the console are very much handheld only, filling the space left by the sadly discontinued Nintendo 3DS. It took Nintendo a ridiculously long time to release a successor to the best-selling Game Boy, eventually replacing it just over 9 years later with the technically underwhelming but attractively backwards compatible Game Boy Color. Aside from the new colour screen, it also came in a variety of different case colours too, meaning it really lived up to its name. By 1995, Sega knew that the time had come to replace the ageing 8-bit Game Gear, and decided to follow the same design principles. Whereas the Game Gear was basically a portable Master System, the new Nomad was a portable Sega Genesis. But this time it didn't need any adapters to play the existing games, giving owners an almost instant library. Long before the Nomad came along, the original console made portable was the NEC PC GT, also known as the TurboExpress in North America. Given how small the existing PC engine was, half the work was already done when it came to making a portable version. The only problem was the extremely high cost of this new design. Out of the original big three handhelds, the Game Gear was the last to arrive. Like the Atari Lynx, it boasted a colour screen, albeit a much worse one, but benefited from the superior support of Sega when it came to games, and also from its rather handy Master System adapter, but it could still never get close to the sales of the Game Boy behemoth. Although the first handheld video games arrived in the late 70s, it was Nintendo's Game & Watch series that revolutionised the category when the first game, Ball, arrived in April 1980. It brought new concepts like the cross-shaped D-pad, double screens and extra functionality, such as the clock, to the market that many tried to copy but never bettered. In late 98, SNK surprised everyone by deciding to launch a new handheld console, leveraging the powerful Neo Geo name for extra effect. But the original monochrome machine didn't really live up to the moniker, and was replaced less than 6 months later with a new, more impressive colour model, going head to head with Nintendo, but ultimately losing out sadly. Nintendo have very much believed in that if it ain't broke, don't fix it mantra over the years, choosing to replace both the Game Boy and Wii with backwards compatible consoles that simply enhanced the existing concept. Taking the hugely successful DS and adding more processing power alongside an amazing 3D screen proved to be a really wise decision. Despite initial models being backwards compatible with the Game Boy Advance, the DS couldn't have been a more radical upgrade on what came before. With its dual screens, a throwback to the Game & Watch, impressive touchscreen functionality and online capabilities, the DS was destined for success, and with sales over 150 million, it very much was. Sony had already taken revenge on Nintendo and taken over the lucrative console market with the PlayStation, but it didn't stop there, as at the end of 2004 they launched the PlayStation Portable, with an ambition to push the big N out of the handheld market too. They didn't quite achieve their goal this time round, but it gained a pretty impressive following anyway. Described by many at the time as a portable SNES, the Game Boy Advance really lived up to its name when it arrived in 2001, as it was a huge advancement on the Game Boy Color that came before it, making the massive leap in processing power from 8-bit to 32-bit, but also took on a whole new horizontal design aesthetic too.
Checkpoint!
Given how well the Lynx did in the greatest consoles of all time poll, both my own and the one done by Retro Gamer magazine, I was always expecting it to do well here, but even I was surprised by its dominant second place finish. Arriving in September 1989, just a few months after the Game Boy, it was the first colour handheld and boasted advanced 16-bit technology.
Stay off the railway.
There was only ever going to be one winner, wasn't there? It might not have been the first handheld to use interchangeable ROM cartridges, but it was the one that revolutionised the concept and encouraged everyone else to try and get in on the act due to its huge success. The Game Boy stayed on the market for 14 years, sold nearly 120 million units, and played host to many iconic games.
Do it.
And that concludes the 20 greatest handhelds of all time as voted for by you. But now I'm waiting to hear what you think. What portables do you think should have ranked higher? Which finishes were you most surprised by? And are there any that you were shocked not to see make the final cut? As always, I love to read your thoughts and views in the comments, so please get typing. Before I go though, I must thank all of my loyal patrons for continuing to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to following patrons and YouTube backers in particular, their much appreciated pledges. Grady Haynes, Mitchell Valentino, Seth A. Robinson, Carl Olsen, Dos Gamerman, Sonic Mania 999, Paul Daniel, Andrew McKay, Retro Resolution, Matt Standish, James Taylor, Trogdor the Burninator, 8-Bit Guy, and Electron Star Claps. If you also want to help support all my creative endeavours, including this YouTube channel, then please go and check out my Patreon right now. You can get access to extra content, including downloads, creative insights, and exclusive videos, including the follow-up to this one showing you the handhelds that were ranked from 21 to 40. Surely that's reason enough. I've been the Laird, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.